Lesson number 28, Modal Interval Exercise in 5/4 time. You can visit the link in the description below to view your free PDF copy of this lesson or download and print on scribd.com. In this week's lesson, we'll be taking a look at the pattern we looked at in last week's lesson, and we'll be slightly changing the rhythm and changing the scales that we're using for the pattern. So if you haven't watched last week's lesson, I suggest that you click the video above so you can briefly review the intervals that we'll be using for this week's lesson. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about with this week's lesson is the new underlying rhythmic pattern that we're going to be using. So in last week's lesson we were playing essentially in 4/4 time, or we were at least thinking that for the pattern. In this week's lesson we're going to be thinking that we're playing in 5/4 time. Now that doesn't mean that you can only use this pattern in 5/4 time. You could also superimpose it over 4, over 3. You just have to know where the pattern repeats itself so you don't lose your place in the form of the song. Okay? So when I'm feeling this pattern in 5, I think of it as a subdivision of 2 dotted quarter notes and 1 quarter note. So let me show you how that feels with our metronome at about 80 beats per minute. So I'm going to snap that rhythm. You could also practice tapping your foot along to that rhythm, or just simply pick a note on your instrument and play along with that rhythm. So it's 2 dotted quarter notes followed by 1 single quarter note. Now you'll notice that the pattern will line up with the metronome every 2 groupings, meaning that on the second grouping of the 2 dotted quarter notes and a quarter note, you'll actually start the grouping not with the downbeat of the metronome. So listen. You see how that one fell, not on the exact downbeat with the metronome, but if you listen through 2 cycles, it'll actually start repeating itself. Back to the downbeat. Okay? So make sure that you can feel that underlying pulse and that underlying rhythm before you start trying to play through this exercise. So once you can feel that rhythm effortlessly, you can start putting the right hand, or just the simple melody if you're on a different instrument than piano, and try to feel that underlying rhythm. You may even want to tap your foot along with the melody while playing. Okay, and then I've just got some simple left-hand voicings. For the major Lydian sound, all we're going to be doing is stacking fourths from the root of the chord through the Lydian scale. And then for the dominant Lydian part of this exercise, all we're going to be playing is a simple root, third, and seventh voicing in our left hand. And the intervals just change slightly from the Lydian part of this exercise. The only difference is we're going to have a flat 7 instead of a major 7. Okay, so let me briefly demonstrate how I've been working on this exercise and taking it through all 12 keys. The first thing that I like to do is put my metronome on, maybe somewhere around 80 beats per minute. I'm going to play through the exercise at half the tempo that I would like to play from my performance tempo. double the tempo. Let's make sure we have that underlying rhythmic feel down. Same thing in our dominant Lydian part of this exercise. Double the tempo. As I said before, you can practice this if you're having trouble hearing or feeling that underlying rhythmic pattern. You could tap your foot along. You could even take the voice in your left hand and play that pattern along with what you're playing in your right hand, like this. Although it kind of muddies up the pattern, but you could do that for a while. You could tap your foot, but eventually what I'd like you to be doing is simply internalizing that rhythmic feeling. And that's a way that you can use this pattern and not get lost when you're superimposing it over other types of time signatures, or even in basic 5/4 time if you don't have a lot of experience playing in that. So continue to work through the exercise slowly through all 12 keys. And if you're having trouble flubbing a lot of notes, or just simply not hearing or feeling where your hands are supposed to be on the piano, feel free to write out fingerings, and also feel free to go slower than the tempo that I've shown you here. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I do come out with new lessons every single week, so if that's something you might be interested in, please feel free to hit the subscribe button. Also, feel free to send me any questions or comments. Leave me a comment below or on my website. I'd be happy to hear from you, and I'll try to answer any questions you might have about my lessons as best as I possibly can. Thanks for watching.